Welcome back to Buy or Sell, the series where you pitch me your predictions and I either buy or sell them and explain why. If you want your idea considered for the next video, leave a comment below starting with buy or sell, and I'll pick a bunch of them to respond to. In this episode, we look at the future of California's Great America, whether Cedar Fair will go back to Intamin or RMC anytime soon, and if the new for 2023 Wildcat's Revenge makes Hersheypark a top 3 coaster park. This is Buy or Sell, episode 12. Let's start with Nathan Havens. The city of Santa Clara intervenes and either purchases the land that CGA sits on from Prologis, or offers the pair up with a potential buyer. So, after the sale went down, Mayor Lisa Gilmore came out with a statement. It didn't say anything definitive, but I think it hinted at what's to come. She called the loss of the park devastating. She said the city found out just like everyone else did, which shows there's no communication or cooperation between Cedar Fair and the city. She stated her concern about all the youth employment the park provided, she herself having worked at the park when she was in high school. But the economic impact is unclear until Prologis explains what they want to do with the land. But the biggest point she made was that this land was zoned for a theme park, and that gives the city some leverage if they don't like what Prologis is going to do with the land. Any of their plans would have to go through the city council, and at that point, they can reclassify the land or they can choose not to. I think this is really up in the air right now. The city doesn't seem eager to accommodate Cedar Fair and Prologis, given how the deal went down behind their backs. But is that really enough to squash their deal and force Cedar Fair to sell the park to another theme park operator? Honestly, I want to buy this, but I'll give it the yellow checkmark because there's so many question marks right now. Elijah Malone. GCI does a Titan track conversion for Boulder Dash within 10 years. I'm buying this. This is a coaster that lake compounds will never tear down. The park is too small. This coaster is too iconic. They will never replace it on that plot of land with anything better. They will do anything they can to maintain it. I can see them doing a straight wooden retrack also, but since we're talking about the course of 10 years, I really wonder how common straight wood retracks will be in the coming years. It seems like Titan track is the wave of the future. Steel track is so much easier to maintain, so that's going to be very attractive to parks that want to smooth out their wooden coasters. Foul Dude. Lagoon gets a new top tier coaster like an RMC Raptor, and Cannibal becomes their number 2 in the next 5 years. I'm selling this. They've spent so much time and money on getting their new coaster Primordial open over the last few years, and this park doesn't open coasters all that often. Over the last 15 years, they've opened 3 new coasters, including this one. So maybe their next coaster will be a major addition like an RMC Raptor. The RMC factory isn't that far away up in Idaho, and that may come in the next 5 years, but it would take a lot to beat Cannibal. I'm talking about a ground up RMC hybrid, a B&M Hyper or Giga. That's just unlikely, especially in the short term. We the coasters. Cedar Point will get a modern wooden coaster in the next 10 to 15 years. My instinct is to sell this, mainly because wooden coasters are a pain and they take up a lot of land. That's land Cedar Point really doesn't have. But over the next 10 to 15 years, I'm actually going to buy this for 2 reasons. A modern wooden coaster is a major gap in this lineup, and Cedar Fair is still interested in buying these, as we saw with Mystic Timbers just 5 years ago. If they were to retire Gemini, that opens up a giant plot of land where they can put a GCI twister. Since it's Cedar Point, it'd probably have some Titan track and some inversions. Maybe it would even be a dueling coaster, and they can theme it as something like Gemini 2.0. 10 to 15 years is a long time. Gemini is going to keep getting older. I can see this happening on this plot of land. Northern Lights Coasters. The next Giga will be an RMC T-Rex. I'm buying this. I don't know of any B&M or Intamin Giga plans out there. I know that Knott's was playing with the idea, but last I checked, the height on that project was knocked way down. Mock Rides and Vekoma could be working on something. I haven't heard anything official, but it wouldn't surprise me. But we do know for a fact that RMC is looking into this. They left a message on Reddit with a capital letter spelling RMC Giga coming. So either they're working on the model, or they're already working with the park on designing one. I don't think B&M is done making these, but it seems like a 300-foot RMC is more imminent. Russ for Moose. Kings Island gets another big coaster before Cedar Point. I'm buying this. Kings Island's last coaster was Orion in 2020. Cedar Point is getting the new boardwalk section, plus the Wild Mouse coaster for 2023. So really, will Cedar Point get a new big coaster before Kings Island gets theirs? It seems unlikely to me. Cedar Point could have something planned where the boardwalk was just a precursor to a major coaster, but I would bet against that. They're probably also spending gobs of money on reworking Top Thrill Dragster. Maybe you consider that a big new addition, but I don't. On the other hand, Kings Island seems to be primed to get their next big addition in the next 2 to 3 years. They have that gaping hole where Vortex used to be, and Cedar Point is always looking for more space to add something new. The timeline and the space factor seem to cut in favor of Kings Island being first. Levi Savaka. If Wonderland Sydney came under Paramount and then was sold to Cedar Fair would have kept it and made it a mid-tier park. For those who don't know, Wonderland Sydney used to be part of the Kings Entertainment chain, along with Kings Island, Kings Dominion, Canada's Wonderland, Carowinds, and Great America. When Kings Entertainment sold their parks off to Paramount in 1992, they only had a minority stake in the park in Australia, so it was not part of the deal. Therefore, it was not part of the 2006 sale to Cedar Fair. The park went downhill and ended up closing in 2004. Had this become a Paramount park and part of the Cedar Fair package, I think Cedar Fair would have sold this park off very quickly. I'm selling this. Cedar Fair has never had any interest in acquiring parks outside of North America. I think Six Flags would have tried it, but I think Cedar Fair would have gotten out as fast as possible. I could be wrong, but given their history, it seems like a good bet. Mr. XW. Hershey Park has a top 3 coaster collection in the US after Wildcat's Revenge. Let me start off by saying, you don't always see a park get the perfect edition. Think of Copperhead Strike at Carowinds, or Twisted Colossus at Magic Mountain, or Mako at SeaWorld Orlando. Those filled in a massive gap their parks had, and I put Wildcat's Revenge in that category. You might be saying that an intense, ejector airtime-filled inversion machine, well, that sounds like Skyrush in Fahrenheit, and you'd be right, but I think this park needed an elite standout coaster that doesn't kill your legs. Candemonium is very good, but not really a standout, but I think Wildcat's Revenge is that A-tier coaster they needed. Hershey Park is full of very solid supporting coasters. You got every gap covered in this park, and it really is in the mix to be considered a top 3 lineup in the country. That being said, for me personally, I'm gonna sell this. Cedar Point, Kings Island, Magic Mountain. I think all 3 of them still have Hershey Park beat. Not to mention Six Flags Great America, which I think is pretty equal. I think a lot of enthusiasts would put Hershey Park in the top 3 along with Cedar Point and Magic Mountain, and that's fine. I would still take Kings Island and maybe Great America over it, but that's just because of my preference. I think, no matter what we enthusiasts want to argue about, we can all agree that Wildcat's Revenge does a lot for the lineup and Hershey Park's collection is great. Everything else is just noise. Ya boy Troy 357. Most B&M hard plastic over-the-shoulder restraints will be replaced by the newer vest restraints in the next decade. I'm selling this. I don't think there's anything wrong with the old school hard plastic B&M restraints. The track profiling also helps. For most of these, you aren't banging your head around. The worst you're gonna get is a rattle, and those vests don't help at all for that. The Vekoma SLCs are different. Those are total head smashers. Same with Ninja at Six Flags Over Georgia, which is now Blue Hawk. It makes sense for all the new B&Ms to go with the vests, but there won't be demand for existing B&Ms to switch over given how expensive it would be. I also think the vests require wider trains, and most of these older B&Ms would not be compatible. Mario Xbox fan. Within the next 10 years, there will be at least one B&M stand-up converted to a floorless. I'm buying this. You have a few good options out there. I'm looking at Georgia Scorcher and Vortex at Carowinds. If I had to bet, I would say Vortex gets the new trains if they choose to keep it. It's also possible Cedar Fair moves this to a park like Michigan's Adventure and reopens it with flowless trains. Georgia Scorcher is newer and has a better reputation, but Over Georgia doesn't have a flowless coaster, so down the line this could be an option. The others in America are the bigger ones, Riddler's Revenge and Green Lantern, and those live in parks that already have flowless coasters, so unless those get relocated, don't count on it. It's down to Georgia Scorcher and Vortex, and I bet one of them gets converted. Wesley Marshall. Gerstlauer will make the new Steepest coaster by 2028. I'm buying this. It seems like Gerstlauer owns this record. SNS has also gone way beyond vertical, but Gerstlauer pioneered the beyond 90-degree drop, and they've pushed that beyond 120 degrees. It seems like only a matter of time before some park wins the record. It's a pretty solid record to brag about, and this can be done on a coaster of any size. Takabisha and TMNT Shellraiser are both major rides, but there's no reason to think it can't be broken on a smaller and more compact coaster at literally any park. Zachary Mohammadi. Cedar Fair builds a trackless dark ride in one of their parks in the next 10 years. I'm selling this. It's one of those things that I'll have to see to believe. We haven't seen this outside of Disney parks. I know they had one at Dreamworld in Australia, but that was different technology in 2005. It seems like, up to this point, dark rides at Cedar Fair and Six Flags are all shooting dark rides. And when they aren't adding new coasters, they're adding basic flat ride clones. I don't know if Cedar Fair will see the value in building a trackless dark ride, assuming it's much more expensive than any other typical addition. I'd just be surprised to see this appear anywhere outside a Universal or Disney park. Zing. Every new launch coaster built will use LSM launches within 3 to 5 years. I'm selling this. I think that 95% or more will use LSMs, but we have seen 5 compressed air launch coasters from SNS open over the last 10 years, and I'm not convinced that SNS is done selling these. We got Max Force just 3 years ago, but these still seem to be popular in China. You might also see some tire launches, like the Intamin Hot Racers, but I don't really count those for the spirit of this question. It's really between the LSM launch and the air launch, and I'm willing to bet within the next 5 years we see another air launch. Coaster Maniacs. Cedar Point will reach 20 coasters in the next 10 years. Right now, Cedar Point has 15 coasters, but within the next 2 years, they'll add the new Wild Mouse and reopen Dragster, so that brings them to 17 with about 8 years left. Will Cedar Point get 3 more coasters in those next 8 years? That's unlikely. Even if they do, will Cedar Point be able to add 3 more coasters without removing an existing one? Possible, but doesn't seem likely. Cedar Point has closed 4 coasters in the last 11 years, so I wouldn't bet on them removing none over the next 10. If I had to bet, 10 years from now, they'll probably be at 18. Jeffrey Halverson. Cedar Fair will patch up their relationships with Intamin and RMC during the 2030s. I'm buying this for both. No matter what Cedar Fair does with RMC and Intamin, these are hot manufacturers around the world. Every year, when we look at the best coasters opening up, it's always either an Intamin or an RMC topping that list. They're getting lots of work overseas and with the SeaWorld chain for Intamin, and RMC for Six Flags and other independent parks. I don't even think we have to wait till the 2030s. I think before 2030, we see a new Intamin and RMC in a Cedar Fair park. If all these great new Intamins and RMCs prove to be successful, and they don't turn out to be a headache for their parks, that will also help Cedar Fair's decision. Life. When Six Flags starts making coasters again, they will start working with Vekoma. I'm buying this, and I've been waiting for this for a long time. These Vekoma coasters in Europe and Asia look amazing, but we weren't seeing them here in America, aside from family suspended coasters. Why was that? I heard that it may be due to Vekoma's reputation here. They loaded up the US with boomerangs and SLCs in the 90s, and those have not aged well. Sensei Technologies owns Vekoma, but they also own SNS. What have we been seeing so much of at American parks, especially Six Flags? SNS coasters, free spins, and Max Force. It seems like Sensei was keeping Vekoma away from America except for small rides and Disney rides, assigning all of those jobs to SNS, but that wall seems to be breaking down. We're finally seeing a major Vekoma open next year at Codaland, and it seems like there would be a big market here for their compact coasters, the ones with a launch and the ones with a lift. It's right up Six Flags alley, thrilling but not super fancy or super long or overly expensive. I would be surprised if Six Flags doesn't add a new Vekoma once they start buying coasters again. That's a wrap on episode 12. Let me know what you think about any of these topics, where you may agree or disagree and why. And don't forget, if you want your idea considered for the next video, leave it down below, starting with buy or sell. Before you go, if you can drop this video a like, I'd appreciate it. And if you're new here and love coasters, please consider giving me a sub. I have a playlist with all the other episodes in this series. Also, check out my links below for my Discord server, and my second channel where I post copyright-free off-ride footage, and my baseball channel if you also happen to be a baseball fan. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.